Hey folks, welcome to another edition of this YouTube channel. If you could please like and subscribe to this channel, it will enable me to do more videos for your entertainment, enjoyment, and education. So today we're going to be talking about the CAGED system. And I'm going to go into my interpretation. I know there's many interpretations out there of the CAGED system, and I've come across it and kind of made my own interpretation and how I approach this and use it towards my improvisation and understanding of the fretboard a little bit. And I'm going to explain this. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about it and how you can use it for some improvisation and show a couple licks at the end. So the CAGED system, what is it? The CAGED system is 5 different chord shapes. So shape 1 is your C major chord shape, which we all know on the guitar. I hope everybody here knows that shape. Shape 2 is the A major shape. Either you can use your 3 fingers, or for this particular lesson today, we're actually just going to use our first finger to bar the 2nd fret. There's your A major shape. Then of course we know the G major shape. And then we have the E major shape. And then we have the D major shape. So we have 5 different shapes: the C major, A major, G major, E major, and D major. Okay, so what this CAGED system is, it's a system that involves having those 5 shapes for one chord mapped out along the whole fretboard. So today we're going to choose the chord C major, because that's basically the first chord in the circle of fifths, and once you have C, pretty much you can do any other chord. So the main thing about when you're looking at this CAGED system and you're looking at these 5 different chord shapes, you want to know where the root of the chord is. Very important. If you don't know where the root is, it's not going to make any sense. And eventually, of course, to make full use of these and full understanding of how you can use these in improvisation, you want to know where the root, 3rd, and 5th is. And I talked about triads in a previous lesson, if you want to go to the lesson before this one. So knowing where the root is. So we're going to do the C major chord in all 5 positions, and you want to know where the root is for now. So we're going to go through all 5 of these shapes just in the CAGED system in open position like we just did, and we're going to find where the root is for each one. So of course we got number 1, so that's our C chord shape. So you're going to be on the 5th string, on the A string, 3rd fret. That's where your root is. You also have another root on the 2nd string, 1st fret, on the B string. So out of the C chord you have 2 roots involved. Okay. Now for the A chord, again, you have 2 roots involved. When you bar that 2nd fret, you have the open 5th string, and you also have the 3rd string, or the G string, on the 2nd fret. So that's your 2 roots in this A chord shape. Then for the G, you actually have 3 in this one. So you have 1 on the 6th string with your G chord, you have the 3rd string open, which is your G note, G string, and then you have 1 on the high E string, 3rd fret as well. Because anything on the 6th string, they're both E, so anything on the 6th string is the exact same as on the 1st string, just 2 octaves apart. So you have 3 G's in that one, in your G shape, okay? Then in your E shape, you have on the 4th string. So we're just going to actually deal with this one that's on the 4th string. Actually, you have 1 on the 6th string open, so that's your low E, the open E string, and then you have 1 on the 4th string. And then again, you actually have 1 on the high E string as well. So you actually have 3 on this one, but mainly we're going to just concentrate on the one that's on the 4th string, okay? So that's your E major chord shape, and that's where the root is. 6th string open, 4th string, 2nd fret, the D string, and then the high E string, just like the 6th string for both of these. Then we have one more, 5th shape. We got the D chord. So this D chord, you have the open 4th string, which is your D string open. Then you have this on the B string, the 2nd string, you have on the 3rd fret. That's where your root is of this chord as well, for your D major chord, okay? Now that we established where the root of is on each of these, we're going to take each of these 5 shapes and kind of systematically approach the fretboard with one chord using each one of these shapes. So we have that C chord in open position. We've already done that one. Now we're gonna again get our next C chord in A position, So we said with the A chord we had the 5th string open, but now if you move that your first finger up to the 5th string 3rd fret, we have that C, and then we just lay our 3rd finger flat against the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string, the D, G, and B string on the 5th fret, and we have an A shape. And then again our root is on the 3rd string. So as long as you retain where the root was for that A chord, this will enable you to find out where all these other ones are. Okay, now we're going to go to the G. So the G one here, so what you're going to do is you're going to lay your first finger flat, and this one kind of involves, you can do it a couple different ways. But this one involves you're going to have your 2nd finger on the 7th fret of the A string, your 3rd finger is going to be on the 8th fret of the low E string, and then your first finger is going to bar the 5th fret of the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string, and then your pinky is going to be on the high E string 8th fret. And there's your C major chord with a G shape. And your root is on the 6th string, the high E string, and then of course on the 3rd string 5th fret as well, just like the A. So as you'll see, all these kind of shapes are connecting with each other as well. So again, we'll get into all that stuff, how they connect. Now we go to the E shape. So if you remember the E shape on the open position here, our root was in the 6th string open, it was also on the 4th string, and then it was also on the high E string. So if you move that all the way up to basically like the 9th fret, there's your E shape, but it's a C chord now. And then of course we had in the E shape, we had all the strings open. So now what we have to do is compensate for those open strings. You're going to lay your first finger flat against all 6 strings. I know if these bar chords are a little bit daunting to you at the point, you can just use that E chord shape for now. But for a little bit more the advanced or intermediate players, you got to bar all 6 strings on the 8th fret, 2nd finger on the G string, the 3rd string, 9th fret, 3rd finger on the 10th fret of the A string, 5th string, and then pinky on the 10th fret of the D string, of the 4th string. And there's your E shape of the C major chord. And then again, your root's on the 6th string, 4th string, and then the high E string. Okay, so there's your E shape. Then we have one more. Now we have the D shape. So the D shape, what you're going to do is you're going to have your first finger on the 10th fret of the D string. So there's your root of the chord, which is C, because in the D chord we had our 4th string open, so we have to compensate for that. So you're going to have your first finger on the 4th string 10th fret, 2nd finger is going to be on the 12th fret of the 3rd string, 3rd finger is going to be on the 12th fret of the high E string, and then pinky is going to be on the 13th fret of the B string, the 2nd string. And there's your D shape, but a C major chord. And if that's a little bit too much for you as well, you can just do like a D major chord shape, but basically up on the 12th fret, and you have a C major chord. So you can just do that as well. And then of course, your C chord shape, which you did down here, you can play an octave up, the exact same shape, but just an octave. So your first finger is going to be on the B string 13th fret, your 2nd finger is going to be on the D string 14th fret, and your 3rd finger is going to be on the A string, the 5th string 15th fret. And if you want to kind of shape it properly, you're going to bar all bar all the 6 strings on the 12th fret, and then refigure your fingers to make that C major chord shape. And you really don't want to basically use that 6th string open, the 6th string 12th fret. So the root's on the 5th string, and then the other root's on the 2nd string, just like we did down here on this one. Okay, so that's the CAGED system. It might be a little bit much for some people because it's a lot of memorization, and the important thing is that you have to know the notes along the fretboard, because that's only the roots. We haven't even got into the 3rds and the 5ths of these chords yet, which is an essential part. Some ways to use this. So in this A shape here, when you're barring the 3rd fret, this is kind of one idea that I like to use, and I like to intertwine a couple of these shapes together. So what I like to do here is I like to do a hammer-on from the 5th to the 7th fret on the 4th string, on the D string. Then I land on the root, which is your C. And I like to do that. And that's kind of in this A shape. And you're also in the C major pentatonic box here too. So you got this. Then I like to slide my second finger from the 7th to the 9th fret. And now we're kind of in this E shape of the C major chord. So you go from 7 to 9 and then you bar the first 2 strings. And then you got that C other position of the C chord, right? So you got, okay, so that's kind of a cool little lick, and then you can kind of come backwards. So, and kind of connect these there. So they all connect together as well. So that's the other cool thing about it. And let me point one thing out. When you're connecting a major chord and you're kind of doing slides, always slide from the 2nd to the 3rd of the chord. So of course we talked about the root, but we didn't really, the 3rd of the chord is the E and the 5th of the chord is the G. So you're gonna always slide from the 2nd to the 3rd. So that was D to E, and then you bar the G string. So that's a kind of a lick coming from the A into basically the G, and you're kind of mixing the G and the E shape together a little bit on this one. Here's another favorite of mine. I use this one all the time. So as long as I know that the root is on the 2nd string, I can use this kind of D shape. I like to use this D shape, which is kind of combined with the C shape in a way here. So you're going to be on the 13th fret of the B string, and that's going to be your root. So as long as you know where that root is, you can play this lick basically anywhere along the fretboard and use it over any major chord. So what I like to do is I like to have that 13th fret on the B string, which is my root. That's as long as I know where my root is. Then I place my first finger on the G string, which is on the 12th fret, and I play them together. And then what I do is I hammer on, right after that, I hammer on my 3rd finger to the 14th fret of the G string, which is an A, and then I re-pick the 12th, the G, and the C. So, and then I slide on the 4th string from the 14th fret backwards to the D, so that's E to D, and that's the 3rd of the chord to the 2nd of the chord, and then I land on the C, okay, which is on the 10th fret, and that's all part of your kind of your D major shape there, right? So, now a student was actually asking me, which is a great question because it challenged me. They said, how can I use the E shape now? Say I did that lick. Now I'm in the E shape, what can I do now? And okay, so now what we want to do is just do some thirds. So you can do, basically if you're in this E major kind of shape here and that we just landed in, you can do these and kind of come out of it that way. So what I did there is I played the 10th fret of the D string and 9th fret of the G string. So that's your C, E, that's a third, and then you just go up the scale. So now your 3rd finger goes to the 12th fret D string and your 1st finger goes to the 10th fret G string, so, which is now D to F, and then you just go up 2 frets from that. So now you're going to go up to the 14th and 12th fret. So 14th on the D string, 12th fret on the G string. And then you can just come slide back into that D major chord shape. So it's a very, very good improvisation tool to have this CAGED system down. And of course, that's only over one chord. And if you have a progression, that's maybe a 1, 4, 6, 5 progression or whatever, like a C chord, a G chord, A minor, and then a C, F, A minor, and then a G chord. You have to learn all those in all those different positions. But the thing is, as long as you know where those root is, then that's an easy thing to do. Because say we had this D shape up here, and I figured out where that C is, that's my root on the B string. All I have to do is take that down to the 6th fret of the B string, and there's my F. And I can do that exact same lick that I just did over the C chord like this. So all these licks are intertwinable as long as you know where that root is. And it's an easy way to access some improvisation ideas on the fly. And you don't have to think too much. Once you've worked out all these ideas and where the root is and everything like that, then it can be a very, very useful tool and unlimited creativity as well with it, right? So again, here's your C chord shape. You just move that up to the 10th fret and you have an F chord shape. So again, and you move that up to the 12th fret, you have a G chord. Just using that one shape, that A major shape, there's your C, 10th fret, you have your F, and then 12th fret, you have your G. And you can also use the pentatonic boxes over that as well, because when we're in the C, we had that pentatonic box, that C major pentatonic, the F, the G, and then back to the C. So it's all universal. It kind of explains itself in a way once you kind of have these shapes down and you understand the system of where the roots are and everything. So great tool for understanding the fretboard, great tool for improvisation, and great tool for just knowing where the root is for all your triads, inversions, and for this CAGED system. So I hope that helps. I hope that explains you know, a simplified version, and that's my approach. Again, I know there's a lot of people that have a different approach to these, but that's my approach of how I use them and how I go about to enable creativity through them. So thank you for checking out this video. I really appreciate that. Please like and subscribe, and I will be posting more videos for your entertainment and enjoyment. Have a great day. Cheers.